Hey, my friends, Kenny Chapman here, the Blue Collar Coach, alongside Larry Winget, the Pitbull of Personal Development. And thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here with us today. Larry and I are just having some brunch, cup of coffee together out here at his amazing place here in Phoenix, Arizona area. And he agreed to sit down and talk a little bit of life, talk a little business, talk hopefully a little bit of trash here this morning. Thank you for being here, Larry.
Oh, I'm glad to do it. I like talking trash too. I'm good at
You
that.
can do that a little bit. So I'm super excited to share this time with all of you. And for me, selfishly, part of this is really about me because I came up as a desiring or a speaker that wanted to speak more. And I always watched this guy, and I would see him on stages. I saw him for the first time, I believe in 2001's first time I ever saw you live from the stage, and it really stoked some things within me. And then all the books that you've written, and so you go from being like celebrity to mentor. You've coached me as a speaker now. We've got to hang out a little bit, and now we're sharing a little bit of time together, and we all have these different paths. Now, you work with a lot of speakers, you help a lot of speakers in some of the things that you do. For Larry Winget, what was kind of the background? Did you wake up one day and say, I'm going to go get in people's faces and become a public speaker? Or how did you decide, I'm going to do this thing?
Get into speaking to begin with?
Yeah, originally.
I had written a lot of training material for AT&T, Southwestern Bell. I worked for AT&T. And when divestiture, remember they broke the Bell system apart, I started my own telecommunications company, did real well. Went to work one day and the Corporation Commission in Oklahoma ruled that what I did in the telecommunications industry was no longer going to be legal. And they didn't grandfather me in, so I kind of went to work one day, a successful business guy, and lost my business that day.
Wow.
And all I'd really ever wanted was an audience.
Okay.
So I decided I'd be a speaker. So in being a speaker, I started as a sales trainer. And then quickly realized that people thought I was funny and that they pay you a whole lot more to make people laugh than they do to teach them how to sell. So I sort of became a motivational humorist, doing pretty much all that same happy crap that most motivational people do. And about 10, 12 years into that, I discovered I hated every word that came out of my mouth. It felt so inauthentic to me. And during that process of feeling inauthentic, I had a moment of revelation. There's a long story I've written about it in some of my books. Mm-hmm. And the revelation was that I was going to go on stage and say what I believed. And if they didn't like it, to hell with them. I didn't care. I was just going to say what I believed. And see how that worked out. First time I went on stage with that attitude, a guy heckled me. And I turned on him and said, you know, buddy, you need to shut up, stop whining, and get a life. And the audience gave me a standing ovation.
Right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and I said, that's probably a good line. And so I started telling the story of that happening with the shut up, stop whining, get a life, and I always threatened to write a book, and then I did. Write a book called Shut Up, Stop Whining, Get a Life, went immediately to #1 on the bestseller list, and that really kicked everything off. It's the reason I got a television show on A&E. Mm-hmm. It's the reason that I got a big agent and did all that, and then wrote 5 more bestsellers after that. Right. So now with 6 bestsellers and a TV show, and regularly appearing on lots of TV shows now. Yeah. And now regularly on Fox. It's worked out very well for me.
Well, I would say so. One of the things I love is every time I see this guy, I say, Larry, how you doing? He always says, it's great to be Larry Winget.
It is good to be Larry Winget.
I love that. But so when you say like whether it's a speaker, a business owner, an entrepreneur, even a leader within an organization, like so you ended up taking that inauthentic path for a minute, and life didn't really get great for you until you said, you know what, screw that. That's not who I am. I'm not going to be your pony, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to be your trained monkey. Here's the deal. I've discovered that whether you're in business or whether you do what I do or you do or anybody does, people pretty much don't believe what you have to say. They don't even listen to what you have to say. However, they will always listen to see if you believe what you have to say. Now that's important, folks, really. They will listen to see if you believe what you have to say. I have people who hate me and buy everything I do because they are so in search of somebody who's authentic. We're so, right now in society, so busy looking for people to like us. And that's a stupid approach. Instead, we should look for people to respect us based on us being so clear about what our core values are, the principles that we want to run our lives, our businesses by, that there's no doubt about who you are and what you believe in. People are attracted to that, and in business, as in my business, but any business, people will pay a premium for that.
They will. They absolutely will. And I think you're right. I think it's something that's completely missing. And as we have, all of our followers, or most of our followers, in some sort of in-home service industry, right? And so right now, as we have people that we want to be liked, and then we have this kind of shift of revolution of team member culture, different things like that. Now we're going to talk about millennials in just a minute, so we'll light the fire then. But before we get there, let's touch on technology for a minute. So in our space where I coach, train, and own a plumbing, heating, air conditioning company, many of you will see that the technology is really impacting how a HVAC contractor comes into your company, how they invoice, how they present sales options, different things like it's happening in all the industries, from Uber to Airbnb to anything, right? How are you seeing that technology impact like company cultures, say, which I believe culture is an important thing, but do you see technology interrupting that, the client interaction, the communication? What are you seeing from your perspective with technology?
Boy, I tell you what, the pendulum swings both ways on technology. It's either the best thing that's happened to us, can really help us do business in a better way, or it's absolutely corrupting our relationships with the customer. And my biggest issue with technology is a negative issue. In fact, I got a lot of negative issues. There are lots of positives. We all see that. I mean, like you mentioned them all. The marketing, people, you can shoot video. I don't care what you do. If you run a dry cleaners, you ought to be shooting video of how you run your dry cleaners and what kind of value you bring to the marketplace. So it's great from a marketing tool, but there are a lot of downsides. The downsides is that it does cost us our client customer relations. We forget how to do business face-to-face with people. We can't be as appreciative with technology as you and I can, sitting here and reach out and say, man, I really appreciate you doing this here. You did that to me just before we went on. That means a lot to me. You can't do that with an email. You can't do it with a text or a tweet. You can't do it in any of that way. But here's the biggest problem with technology. The internet allows for hyperbole. And most businesses advertise with hyperbole. Okay,
let me stop. Hang on. We're the Blue Collar Success Group. What does hyperbole mean?
Hyperbole means it's an over-exaggeration.
Okay, there we go.
You are not the best at what you do.
Okay.
Don't say you are. Okay. There's a lot of great people out there in your field, right? Now, you might really be the best.
Don't listen to him. Don't listen
to him. No, I'm not talking about you specifically, but I'm talking about people who claim to be the only, the best. Use all these terms, and we see it every time you look up somebody's website.
Or secret. I love the secret one.
Yeah. No, but when you start to look at everybody, what sets you apart? It's not your use of adjectives that sets you apart. And too many people in their advertising, especially their online advertising, they use the big words and then they don't back it up. I mean, you go on and you can't tell whether a guy's been in business a week or 10 years based on the adjectives they use to describe their business. There's a real downside to that. And that goes back to that authenticity thing, too.
That's right.
You can't tell whether people are telling the truth. And that is rooted in integrity. And that's why I say you run your life and your business based on integrity. And that means that you got to be telling the truth. It's okay to say, I'm new at this, which means I'm going to work harder. Which means I'm going to do whatever it takes because I really need you to like what I do and who I am and to tell others about it. Why wouldn't you just say I'm new at it? And because of that, here are the benefits to you.
Right.
It's much more honest and authentic.
And instead we go into all these relationships with a basic assumption that people aren't going to tell us the truth. And technology makes it easier for them to almost hide behind that act. Back in the day, if you were brand new, you were brand new, and people kind of knew it. Now it's like, you can kind of create some
brick and mortar stores. You can tell where they're brand new.
Exactly.
And with the internet, you can't because you don't have that same sort of thing going for you, where you can see it one day and not see it the next.
There you go. Absolutely. So thank you. We got a lot of people jumping on, and if you have questions for Larry or myself, to go ahead and pop them in the comment box anytime throughout. I'll kind of check periodically here as we're streaming this live for you. But I want to really piggyback, because one of the things that I do for you, my followers, is help bridge this gap. Because in our space, what we're seeing is many people are wanting to almost replace a frontline team member with a machine. And instead, you know, it's like, rather than have this communication, I need somebody to come into your home and educate you about something going on in your home. So now there's a movement and a shift of give them an iPad and YouTube videos, and hi, Larry, I'm Kenny, and here's what my product does. You want to watch a few minutes of it? It's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense.
You know, I think there's a place for replacing people.
Right.
With machines, when it makes a whole lot of sense to the bottom line, but it never makes sense, in my opinion, when we're trying to do business with people, knowing that our future success hinges on relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
You can't replace a relationship with a machine.
Right. Right. So, and that's the thing. So Uber, I'm not looking to get to know my driver. I'm looking to get from point A to point B. So I'm okay not making any contact, whatever.
Exactly.
You know. Okay.
But if I'm going to hire a guy to replace my air conditioner, we got to have some conversation. You know,
listen to this. Listen to this.
I got an air conditioner story real quick for you.
All right.
All right. So I had a problem with mine, and so I called a guy to come and look at it. And he comes up and looks at it, and he says, "Listen, I know my air conditioner. It was here in the house a long, long time before I bought the house." And he said, "I can patch it, and we can get you by until we can get a new one in." And I said, "Well, you know, it's 115 degrees. Let's do this and give me a bid." So he did, and he got by with the whole thing. And it's around in the end of the house, and I never went around there. He got it to work, and I felt it was cool again. And he said, "And here's your bid." And I go, "All right, that looks pretty good. And when could we do it?" And he said, "I could get it in by Thursday for you. This is a Monday. Everything looks good. I'm fine. I'm happy." I liked the guy and so forth. And then he drove away. And I thought, good, he'll show up on Thursday and we'll do this whole thing. And then I walk around to where he's been working on the air conditioner to get patched. And there's crap all over the ground, and he's left his paper cup laying there, and it's trashy, and there's, you know, wire clippings. And I got dogs, and I don't like wire clippings laying around, and you know, pieces of tape and stuff like that. And I just looked around and said, "Really?" And I called him and said, "Forget the whole thing. Just forget the whole thing." So the guy lost like an $8,000 deal because he didn't do something very, very simple.
So what do I always tell you guys? We get judged based on how we clean up even. He could have done a completely crappy repair and cleaned up all that, and he still would have got the replacement, because your perception, you're not looking at what he did inside the unit. You're looking at, well, what else is he going to leave off? What else is he not going to have detail for?
20 seconds.
Just like that. Just like that. Think about that, my friends. Now, let's talk about this millennial movement for a moment, because technology is certainly driving some of that. Now, what do you think about millennials in the workforce? And
you ever watch me on TV?
I know.
If y'all don't, go to my website and look at some of my clips. I do a lot of reporting on millennials.
Go to LarryWinget.com and follow up on some of this, but I want a little snapshot here for you.
You know, we're quick to throw millennials under the bus.
We are.
But there's a reason.
They've earned a little bit of it.
They have earned it. But, you know, we've gotten to the point that millennial, it's become a term that blanket describes everybody. And really, that's not fair. However, 32% of millennials between the ages, that's adults between the ages of 18 and 34, live with their mom and dad. 66% of boomers, I'm harder on the boomers than I am millennials, because boomers, 66% of them financially support their millennial children in some way. That's our fault, not the millennials' fault.
So you're saying your kids are your own damn fault. Another bestseller.
Yeah, wrote a book by that name. The challenge for us in business and dealing with millennials is every study about millennials say that millennials need to feel included. They need to feel like they are a part of something. It's not about the money with millennials. Millennials, when they take a job, they need to feel like they are a part of something bigger than they are. Now, the way a manager, a leader, an owner should look at that is that through good communications with their employees, you can make them feel like they are a part of something. The trouble is when we hire people, we say, this is your job, go do it, and we turn them away. And I mean, they're on their own at that point. But if we sit down and say, look, let me tell you why the company exists. The company exists to serve people well. And the better we serve people through great customer service and good communications and making them happy and doing whatever it is your company does for them, the more happy customers we will have, the more money they will pay us, the more profitable we can be, and the more people we can employ. And then a millennial, a new hire, says, wait, I'm a part of that?
Yeah.
And now I'm a part of something bigger. I just don't have this menial task that I've been assigned and turned loose to go do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So think about that, my friends, when, one of the drums that I beat is about company message, company story. All of you that are joining us or watching this after we're done here, you're all beating that same drum. There's no good people out there. I can't hire anybody. And I say it's your own fault. There's enough people, but you're not communicating what differentiates you. That's what I talk about, is that differentiation. Now, add that piece Larry just brought in here where they want to be something, and I would say most people want to be part of something bigger. You've got to paint that story. Now, some of you are going, I'm a 2-3 truck person. I can't compete with the 100 truck guy down the street. That is a fallacy in your mind, because you can differentiate that. No different than marketing. If I'm the biggest in town, I'm going to play that angle. If I'm the smallest in town, there's an angle. Like you said, I'm a brand new startup. There's benefit in that for certain groups of people. So it's a matter of finding that. So as leaders then, just to kind of tie this together, the better that we can communicate with them. But what about our friends out there that are going, yeah, but I've got a couple, and they don't listen. They won't listen to me, Larry. And so what's the point? I've told them, and they don't want to get. Is that just that generalization? And you're just
Yeah, that is a generalization.
It is, isn't it?
And what they're saying is true statistically. I always go back to this, and some millennials say, yeah, but that doesn't apply to me. Well, then I'm not talking to you.
Okay. Fair enough.
But it does apply to about a third. It's funny, it's about a third are takers, about a third are horrible employees, about a third live with mom and daddy. I mean, it's across the board. It runs about a third of millennials, which means perhaps you've hired, if that's the kind of person you've hired from that wrong third.
Yeah.
Because there's 2/3. So don't automatically say anybody between the ages of 18 and 34 is going to be a crap employee. That's not the case. 2/3 of them are going to be really good employees. But still, it always comes back to you. Mm-hmm. Remember, what you tolerate, what you put up with, you endorse. Mm-hmm. So if you have employees that aren't listening to you and they still work for you, and if they do bad work for you and you put up with it, that's your fault. Mm-hmm. It's not the employee's fault. That's your fault. You're a bad manager. I wrote a book, Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. You're broke because you want to be. I could easily write a book, this is in my book, it's called Work for a Reason, that if your employees suck, it's because as a manager, you suck.
So what do you get? You guys know that I quote Larry, I recommend his books to you, and I love that you brought that up. We were just talking on one of our Titanium group calls recently about tolerance, and one of the issues we have in the blue collar home service industries is our pain point is way too freaking high. We put up with not making enough money. We put up with people that don't show up. We put up with clients that we should fire. Our pain point is way too high, so we endure and tolerate so much crap and sit there and whine and complain and whatever, rather than saying, you know what, I'm done. I mean, my life changed when I said, this business sucks, I hate it, I don't want to be. When I started out as a drain cleaner, I didn't have any fun, I wasn't making any money. I said, I hate this. I'm either going to figure out a way to make it work, or I'm going to go do something else. My life changed immediately.
And it will with your kids, and it will with your employees. Remember this, all you got to communicate is exactly what you want. That's it. You do this with your kids, you do it with your employees. This is what I want from you. Now I'm going to teach you how to deliver what I want from you. Now I'm going to follow up to make sure that you understand what I just taught you. And now I want to communicate with you the consequences. The consequences of giving me what I want and the consequences of not giving me what I want. You don't communicate consequences afterwards. You communicate consequences clearly in advance. So the expectations are clear. So now you have an employee who says, wait, this is what they want from me. They've shown me how to do it. They followed up with me to make sure I know how to do it. And I know that if I do it, I get this, and if I don't do it, I get that. That is good managing. That's good parenting.
I love that. Thank you for that. That is awesome. And thanks, Eric. Thanks for being with us. And you're right. Eric says what you tolerate, you actually endorse. Yes, you might as well. It's not even tolerating. You're actually endorsing it and creating it, right? So think about that. One of the buzzes we talk about a lot too is this accountability thing. We got to hold people accountable. We've got to all that. And so you're saying that, like, let's get that going. I see too many people that they go through 80% of that, and I'm going to train you, and I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to tell you what I want you to do, and then you go out and don't do it, and then, well, I better hold them accountable, I better do this or that or whatever, rather than if-then. If you perform, here it is. If you don't perform, here it is. Now, are we clear? And then we make it.
Consequences are positive as well as negative.
Right.
And they should, and employees, just like kids, it's all the very same. Consequences should always be explained in advance. That's why, I listen to parents say, I spend all my time punishing my kids. Well, you probably didn't spend much time in advance explaining to your kids what you wanted them to do and showing them how to do it. The very same thing with employees. If you're spending all of your time managing the low end of your workforce, you haven't spent much time either training, giving them the confidence, or trusting them to do what you taught them to do. Here's what you have to understand, and I'm going to give you all the golden key about how to manage people. It's the smartest thing I ever said about managing people. It is in my book, and I go through a lot of detail there. It's called Work for a Reason, but here it is. Employees, you got the top 20%, you got the bottom 20%, you got the middle 60%. That's how it works all the time.
Yep.
The top 20% are great people. If you never showed up, they'd still do their job.
Right.
The bottom 20%, they're never going to be any good. They're not going to be any good at all. They don't want to be any good. You can spend all of your time with them, and managers do, trying to make them better, and there's a reason they're not any good. There's no desire to be any good. It's not about the ability. It's about the willingness. They have no willingness. And then you're working with the 60% in the middle. Now, here's the way it works. Your top 20%, they're so good, they'll be great without you, and at some point, they will leave you. Your best people always leave you. They just outgrow you. So you got to either hustle to keep them involved, engaged, paid enough, whatever it is, promoted enough, but at some point they're still going to be so good they go away. The bottom 20%, you need to help them go away. You need to fire them. Remember, you can't fix them because they don't want to be fixed. You're left with the 60% in the middle. Now, if you lose the top 20%, you lose the bottom 20%, you've got 60% there in the middle. Some of them can't wait to move up. Some of them can't wait to move down. That's the way it is. But you never spend your time trying to fix the bottom 20%. If I went into 90% of the businesses in America, whether they're small business or major corporations, every HR team is spending all their time trying to train and fix the bottom 20%. And it is a waste of time and energy.
Absolutely. Well, you're definitely striking some chords there for sure. Expectations, consequences. Thanks for that, Larry. We've got true words. Thank you for that. As far as I think that's, we're missing little key components. And think about those of you that I currently work with, and I literally flip chart that bell curve, and I talk about how we design our training programs is really designed for that middle 60. Because that's where the money's made. That's where your top 20 is making you dough, but that's kind of your future.
Yep.
And I think you're right. You got to have the guts. And then it's like, yeah, but there's nobody out there. I can't let this crappy one go. Let me spend some time. And now you're operating out of fear, and you're never going to get there, right?
Exactly right.
Absolutely. Very cool. Very cool. So, out of all your books, it was funny when we were working together. You were coaching me a little bit right around when Grow a Pair came out, and so I was talking to my titanium group about the book, and one of our clients read it, and literally I think I forwarded it to you, but he created on his email signature the tagline had a picture of the Grow a Pair with the I want to say cantaloupes, watermelons, and he quoted something from me and made it there. So a huge hit, and you resonate well with our followers and most people that want to get it, but. One of the great books you wrote too is called You're Broke Because You Want to Be. Now, go get the book because it's a great book, but in a snapshot, I would guess a lot of people out there watching this are going, no, I'm not. I want to be rich. I want to make money. How can you tell me that's not true, that you want to be broke?
Well, one of the questions I often start off with when I'm working with a group is how many of you are 100% satisfied with your life just the way it is? You like how much you weigh, you like the quality of your relationships, you like your career the way it's going, and you like how much money you've got. How many of you are 100% satisfied? Nobody raises their hand. I always say you all are liars.
You're liars.
You are 100% satisfied. If you weren't, things would be different. And so I believe that everything going on in our life is just the way we want it to be. I do believe you're broke because you want to be broke. Otherwise, you would be doing everything in the world that you possibly could. You would be taking every action out there. You would be spending every minute of every day being other than broke. And the fact is, you're not. So it goes back to that sort of what you tolerate, you endorse.
Right.
And if you tolerate not having enough money, you might as well be endorsing it because that's the way it is in your life because you're accepting it. So I tell people everything in your life is exactly the way you want it to be. And money's just part of it.
And it's one of the categories.
Yeah,
right?
and money's just part of that whole process of thinking. And that's rooted deeply in personal responsibility. Your life is the way you want it to be.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You're not the touchy-feely, the okay, this and that.
We are not going to circle up, hold hands, and sing everybody out.
We're probably not going to hug while we're doing this, so you can stop that now. But, let's, okay, so David says change is uncomfortable is why so many people stay where they are. Thanks for being with us, David. Hope to see you soon. And, one of the things that, okay, so you're broke because you want to be. You mentioned confidence when you were talking about training our team members. I'm a big believer in helping people increase confidence. And I believe if you increase confidence, you increase results. What do you have to say about the kid like me, grow up fat kid, drug dealing dad, blah, blah, zillions of stories out there just like mine. I don't have self-confidence. I don't believe I'm worthy of being wealthy. Is that all just crap that I'm playing in my head, or is there some legit challenge that people have to look at getting over?
There are some legitimate challenges. Sure there are. Let me challenge you a little bit on what you just said, helping give people confidence.
Okay.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
You can't give anybody confidence. We have a tendency to forget that the root word of self-confidence is self. It's not confidence, it's self. And self-reliance is self. And self-help. I'm in an industry, the self-help industry. They've made it way too much about the help, and I make it all about the self. And so when you look at self-confidence and self-reliance and all those, and then you get into self-righteousness and mostly today in our society, it's all wound up in self-pity because we feel like we're victims. And that's the point of Grow a Pair, is that there's so much going on, and you could have wallowed in self-pity, but instead you shifted that around to self-confidence. And that comes from taking advantage of small victories. I think confidence and self-confidence comes from, and that's why if you're a parent and you have a child that's a little challenged, a little timid, and all those kind of things, you need to show them how to play on a series of small victories. And I mean small victories. You might have to start out that way. You do the very same thing with employees. And that's how they build their own self-confidence, by showing them to recognize what a victory is and how to celebrate a small victory. Hell, I got a new puppy you just met.
Yeah, right.
Listen, if he pees outside and not inside, we have a damn party. And then pretty soon he says, "Oh, I like to have those parties. I think I'll pee outside more."
Oh, I love that. And what's so funny is you all know how much I talk about keeping it simple, and we overcomplicate things, and our egos as entrepreneurs, we try to make things hard so our ego gets to solve something instead of just making things as simple as possible. And I think that ties. So think about that. You can take, now we're not saying your team members are puppies, but you can take training a puppy.
Hopefully they're not peeing in the floor.
Hopefully they're not peeing in the floor at least.
It's a good day. I've had employees that was a challenge, bro.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Just help them have small victories, recognize them, and build on them. That's all you got to do.
Awesome. Okay, so I've got a position on this, and I'm interested to hear what yours is. You and I are both labeled motivational guys. We play in a motivational speaking industry, whatever. can you motivate somebody?
Motivate means get people to move. That's all it means. To get people to move. Every speech should be a motivational speech because it gets people to move from where they are to another place, to a better place.
Okay.
I've trademarked that I'm the world's only irritational speaker because I don't believe I can motivate you to go from where you are to a better place. I will guarantee you I can make you so irritated with where you are, you'll do anything to go to a better place. That's my approach to being in business. That's my approach to my business, but that's my approach to my employees. And if you build on what I said earlier about making sure people know what they're supposed to do, know how to do it, I've confirmed they know how to do it, and I've communicated in advance what the consequences are, I can make them very uncomfortable with where they are. So they'll do whatever it takes to get to a better place. Now, I believe all motivation, we've talked about self, is self-motivation. And so if you teach people to have high regard for themselves, if you help them with that idea of self-respect and self-confidence, if you talk to them about their core values and what really matters, not so much how they do things, there are lots of ways to do anything.
That's right.
But if you built on honesty and integrity and doing the right thing and serving people well and so forth, the standards go up so much that when they ever perform lower than those standards, that they will motivate themselves to say, and that's where I become so uncomfortable. And so if we can get people to be uncomfortable, see, that's what I think the problem is right now. It's not that what we put up with, it's what we no longer even recognize as a problem.
Well, we don't even, okay, I see. So one of the things that, because I'll say from stage that I don't believe you can motivate another person. And the reason why is because I had an experience where I was in the United States Army, and little young Private Chapman from small town Colorado got off of that cattle car, and drill sergeants in your face and beating things and calling you names and all these things. Incredibly motivating for Private Chapman. However, we had several privates throughout my time that dropped out and went home and couldn't do it and all that. And what I took away, and I didn't know the lesson that day, but what it tells me is that the drill instructor provided an environment for Private Chapman to motivate himself. Is that part of our responsibility as leaders? So, because he couldn't motivate me, the environment I chose to, because I didn't want to get kicked out.
Well, that goes back to the culture question that you mentioned a while ago, and that's what I was just talking about, that we create a culture that's based on a core value system that is so high, that's such a high level, and you as a leader set a standard within your company that says, I expect the best from people. I train so they can deliver the best. I reward people who deliver the best for me. And there's a negative consequence for people. And when you create that culture, I believe automatically that the performance level of everybody moves up. And when you stop tolerating the bottom 20%, you're always cleaning them out all the time. People that are left go, I think I better do better.
Yeah, right. There you go. Mike, thanks. That's right, Larry. It's whatever it takes every day. Thanks for being on, buddy. So let me ask you this. What is Larry Winget? Puts a lot of info out there, a lot of positioning. What's the best advice Larry Winget's ever got?
I just posted this the other day on Father's Day. It's from my dad. My dad was a country boy. I mean, I grew up in Muskogee, Oklahoma, but, he was a country boy. And he worked for Sears for 47 years. And every single day, he was never motivated. He didn't do his job because he felt good about it, or, he never found his purpose or his passion or any of those kinds. That was not about what my dad did. My dad made a deal. And the deal, when he was 17 years old and went to work for Sears, is if you'll show up with the money, I'll show up with work. And I learned that it wasn't about being motivated or happy, or it wasn't even about feeling good physically, none of those stuff. My dad made a deal, and it was a deal based in commitment. That's who my dad was. But my dad gave me a piece of advice, and this was it. He always said, the grammar was not right, I'll tell you this. My dad didn't have great grammar. But he said, Larry, smile, it don't cost nothing. Smile, it don't cost nothing.
There you go.
And it was great advice because you can disarm just about anybody with a smile. Now, I'm not a real smiling guy all the time. But hopefully I give off this when I'm dealing with people. I just want to treat people right. That's sort of what the reminder is. Treat people right. I give folks the benefit of the doubt. And I smile at folks, and I treat, no, everybody deserves that from you. Everybody.
Right. Well, and so one of the things that we were talking before we got on camera here about authenticity, and one thing you cannot argue about Larry Winget is you're authentic. And I think that comes through as a smile. You could be in my face coaching me, but I know you're coming from a place of wanting to actually help me.
The most loving thing you can do for anybody is telling the truth. I posted the other day that the truth often hurts. In fact, most of the time the truth really hurts.
Right.
But it's never mean. And I believe that. So if I really care about you, I will care about you enough to be truthful with you.
Absolutely. Think about that. Think about that for your own top leaders, finance. Where's my income statement on time? You got to tell people the truth. Love that. Love that.
Even when your wife says, "Does my ass look fat?"
Oh man, now
I get that question a lot, Larry. And I've had people listen to what I just told you, and they said, "So do you say that when your wife?" And you could call her in here right now, and she will say, "Yeah, he does."
Yeah, he does.
He does. Now, is that still a smart thing to do? I contend that it is. Because if my wife is in a dressing room and comes out and says, "What do you think, Larry?" If I go, "Honey, that's gorgeous," and then she goes out and doesn't look her best, that becomes my fault.
Now it's your problem.
She'll say, "Why didn't you tell me? Look at this. Why didn't you tell me?" So I'm just honest all the time. It works.
I got asked that question before we came here today by Christy. Lovely Christy said, "I'm not sure about this dress. What do you think?" And fortunately, it looked great. So I was able to not have to go there
Christy
today.
looked great.
I love it. Tell people the truth and start with yourself. Tell yourself the truth first.
Well, that's the hard part.
So, best advice came from Pops.
Yeah.
Was Pops your number one influence then, or who's been the biggest influence in Larry's life?
Professionally, my biggest influence was a guy named Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
Because Jim Rohn, and if y'all don't know him, I wore out 3 different audio tape series. That was back before we even had CDs, called Take Charge of Your Life. The most influential set of speeches I'd ever heard. It was based on a one-day seminar that Rohn did, and I listened to it so many times. But Rohn talked about principles, and that's how I've modeled my career. I just speak about principles. I can't tell you, I could, but nobody cares about 10 ways to do this and 7 ways to make the sale and all that. But if you build your life and your business on principles, the ones I've been talking about here, core values, those kind of things, you'll always be good. So the influence he had on me was to really remind me, scope up, folks. We get so caught up in the details of how am I going to do this or how am I going to say that. If my motive is to serve, if it's a little ugly in the way I do that, my customer gets the motive. If my motive is to be a good leader and help you be a better employee, if my motive is pure and clear, that comes through, even though my words might be a little clumsy. I tell speakers that when they go on stage, don't worry about making sure that every word comes out exactly the way it ought to so it impresses the hell out of people and all of that. Right. Let me see your motive.
Yeah,
let me feel your authentic, and that goes back to authenticity. Let me feel that. So I speak on principles. I talk about motive. I talk about core values. And being reminded to do that, I think, is the best thing that we can all be reminded of.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, Jim Rohn was a great one for sure. Definitely. So Sherry chimes in and says she loves the orange boots. Oh, she must be able to see him down through here.
Stingray. Orange Stingray.
Nice. Love it. So, okay. Well, before we get off of here, let's do this. Thanks for everybody that's joining us. And okay, so Eric, great question. So Eric's asking you, Larry, so how did you discover what your true motive was? Like you said, if yours is to serve, how do you find that?
My true motive is not to serve. My true motive is to remind people that everything in their life is their own damn fault.
Okay.
So I'm trying to remind people of personal responsibility.
Isn't that a form of service, though?
Yeah, it is a form of service, and that's how I serve people. But that's my motive.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm real clear about that. I tell you what, no matter what I try, when I write a book, most people say, "What's the book about?" I just want to know what the book's not about. When I say, "Who's my audience?" Who isn't my audience? Mm-hmm. When I say, "What is my core value?" What isn't?
Okay.
So I exclude things.
Eliminate.
When the most valuable thing I've ever said, I believe it's the smartest thing I've said in 25 years of doing this, is discover your uniqueness and learn to exploit it in the service of others. Discover your uniqueness and learn to exploit it in the service of others, and then you're guaranteed success, happiness, and prosperity. And people always say, well, what's my uniqueness? Well, what is it? And so when we get real clear about what our values are, we do that by say what our values aren't. When we say, what do we believe? Well, what do you not believe? That's how I do everything. They asked Michelangelo when he was carving the famous statue David, and he said, how did you carve the statue David? He said, I took a big piece of stone and I removed everything that wasn't David.
Powerful.
That's powerful.
Powerful.
So what I've tried to do in 60 years of being Larry Winget was just get real clear, and I still do this at this age. Every day I say, that's not who I am. I'll find something every single day, some little thing at this point in my life. That's not who I am. When I told you I started in the business as a sales trainer, I said, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
And then I was a motivational guy. I said, that's not really who I am. I'm this guy. And so if everybody did that about their business, you can't be all things to all people. You can't try to make everybody happy. Find your niche. And I believe when you exclude all the things that you aren't, that's when you find true authenticity, and that's when you develop true fans with your customers and clients.
I love that. Thank you for that. And Eric, thank you for the question. And so you and I were just talking 2 weeks ago maybe about unique ability and helping, find yours. We were both on planes trading messages. Let's reconnect and let's make that happen, brother. So thanks for being here, and that's fantastic, Larry. So, okay, we're about to wrap up here for everybody. Now, what's something that might surprise people about Larry Winget? I'm
a hell of a cook.
I
really am a hell of a cook. Have you ever, Myron Mixon is? Myron Mixon has a show on television called Barbecue Pitmasters. He's the winningest man in the history of barbecue. I paid Myron to go learn how to cook barbecue from the best in the business. I stayed down the street from him, went to his backyard for 3 days and said, how did you do this?
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, you can do that, folks. You can go pay Myron just like me. Really, if you want to learn how to do something, hire the best.
Go to the best, right.
And so I went to the best, and I'm a hell of a cook.
Okay.
I really am. There's a lot of things folks don't know about me.
That's interesting because you actually turned me on to the green egg originally at your old house.
That's my favorite possession.
There you go. There you go. All right, so we're gonna get out of here, my friends. Thanks so much for hanging. As we leave here, Larry, everybody's gonna watch this. They're gonna go forward. They're looking. Hopefully, we've created an environment for them to question something, challenge something, change something. What's something they could do in the next week to improve life, business, results, relationship?
Here's my best piece of advice. Most common question I get is what you just said. What can I do to go be successful? I tell people get 3 sheets of paper. On the first sheet of paper, write down how your life is, how your business is, every area. How much money do I have? How am I related? All the different categories.
How it is.
This is how it is.
Okay.
Second sheet of paper, this is how I want it to be. This is how it is. This is how I want it to be. 2 sheets of paper. By the way, there's not an app for this. It's 2 sheets of paper.
This is actual paper.
Paper. On the third sheet of paper, write down what you're going to give up to get from where you are to where you want to be. Success is about sacrifice. And the only guy in personal development that focuses on the sacrifice. The motivational idiots are saying you can have it all, and you can't. You're going to have to choose.
You've got to choose.
You don't get more success. You give up what's keeping you from being successful. You don't get rich. You give up what's keeping you broke. You don't get skinny. You give up what's making you fat. You don't get happy. You give up what's making you unhappy. That's what everybody needs to do. This is how it is. This is how I want it to be. What am I going to give up?
Well, there you go. How about that for something to leave this on? So thank you all for being here. Larry Winget, national bestseller, multiple times, speaking coach, trainer, all the things that you do. Thank you for being here. Go LarryWinget.com. buy Larry's stuff, follow him on Facebook. You know, I don't know, are you on Twitter too?
I'm everywhere.
Larry is everywhere. I'm not as good on Twitter as I probably should be, but that's because I haven't eliminated the thing stopping me from doing more on Twitter, right? So thank you all. Larry, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Very good.
All right, see you soon, everybody.